The command box is located here at the top left. And it really is an amazing little tool that Logos has given you. Now, the purpose of the command box is for you to type in information, a command, so that you can quickly jump to a menu, a resource, a document, etc. Now, if you want to know what are all the possible commands available to you, all you have to do is go to the Logos Wiki page. The web address is wiki.logos.com/logos_9_commands. Now, this is really important to understand because there are a lot of things you can do with this command box. So let's do a quick overview of this page. Now, right away, you have this explanation of nomenclature, and this is just to help you understand the kind of information you need to put in when you enter these commands. There's descriptions, there's parameters, and then there's choices. I'm going to walk you through each general category and give you my personal opinion when I think the command box is a time saver or the command box would really slow you down. So let's begin first with documents. Now, in my personal opinion, you don't need the command box for documents. Just go to Docs, go to New, click the menu, and away you go. So here's the first option, create document type, named document name. And you get the example here, create clippings, name creation. So I'm just going to copy that actual example. Let's jump to Logos real quick. Let's right click and paste that into the box, and you'll see the menu will change. Documents at the top, create clippings, name creation. As soon as we click that menu or press enter or click go, Logos will create that document. And sure enough, there it is, creation. Now I'm going to go ahead and right click and paste this in the menu again. Now, one of the advantages of using the command box is that you can take these menu items and drag them to your shortcut toolbar. So for example, if I left click on create clippings, name creation, and drag that here, and if I close my document and click on my shortcut, there it goes. Now notice that it literally did it in one click. Now this can be a great strategy if there's a operation that you're doing on a regular basis. I recommend creating it through the menu, dragging and dropping the menu item on the shortcut toolbar. Now you've got a one click to create a document. So we'll click the pencil icon, go in there and type in a new word. And now our document has been changed to Word. So the strategy here for you is to use the command box to get access to the menu, then drag and drop that menu to the shortcut toolbar, and now you've got an instant one-click shortcut to a routine operation. Let's go back to the Logos Wiki page. All right, the next option is font scaling. Now this is actually pretty handy. Now notice what it says, set content scaling. These options are available in the program settings box. I recommend just going there. However, set program scaling, look at this important insight. You can go from 50% to 250% every 5 points. But in the program settings, you can only go to 80 to 200%, and those options are limited. So this is actually pretty cool and pretty handy. Let's select the text, set program scaling. I'm going to right click and choose copy. Let's go back to Logos. Let me close this down. Let's paste it in there. Now, we don't need that little squiggly bracket, so let's delete that. So now we can change our program scaling to something very specific. Let's say we want 145. In a few moments, Logos will generate the menu option. There it is, set program scaling to 145. When we click it, notice things have changed. If you go to the top right and click on the stoplight menu here, you can see that we do not have a 145%. And if we click the three dots, which takes us to program settings, and we scroll down, we now have it. Now notice there's no 150% here. So let's right click and paste in our command box. Let's get rid of that squiggly bracket, put in 150%, wait for Logos to generate the menu, click it, and now it's 150%. Now if we close down the program settings, go back to the stoplight menu at the top right, we do have the 150% here. If we click the three dots to go into the menu, you'll see that Logos populated the program scaling at 150%, and now our 145% is gone. So I show this option because you now have a little more control to change your program scaling, but you won't see that change unless you close down the program settings window and reopen it up. I love that feature. Very handy. Let's go ahead and right-click on our shortcut on the shortcut toolbar, unless you want to keep it, and let's click delete. Let's go back to our Logos 9 commands. Now, as far as the rest of these guides, pretty straightforward. I think it's easier just to click through the menu. Indexing you should be aware of. If suddenly you discover that Logos just isn't searching properly, before you give Logos a call, come here. Notice the various options. You can rebuild the index. This will delete and rebuild all your resources. This takes the longest. Now you have rebuild library index, which deletes and rebuilds only the library index. These would be things connected to your books. Rebuild Bible index focuses just on Bibles. Rebuild personal book index focuses just on personal books. And then re-index, you can actually go on a specific title. So if you discover a specific book doesn't seem to be working right with searching, you can target that book by putting in re-index and then that specific abbreviated title or resource ID. Now, if you're wondering where you get that information, we covered that in a previous video, but let me just take a moment to show you where that is again. So we'll click the library icon. We'll click any book in your library, doesn't matter. We'll click on the stoplight menu at the top right. We'll then click on information from the menu. We'll go all the way to the bottom, and there you go. And there's the Logos resource ID. So let's try this. I'm going to double click and right click on that selected text. And the command is re-index abbreviated title. So let's type in re-index, space, paste that in there. Give Logos a moment to get that. Now look what it did. It actually found the book and put in the proper name. We'll click re-index 1 and 2. We'll close this. We'll click done, close the book. Returning to the Logos 9 wiki page on commands. Layout, pretty straightforward. The close all, we have that button here at the top right. We have that button in our Logos shortcut. Notice you can do open, but again, I don't see any benefit using this unless you're always opening a whole bunch of layouts. But again, if that's the case, create a shortcut to that layout. Be a lot easier. You have the look up and go. This sometimes can be helpful, going to a specific verse. Let's go back to Logos. All right, notice now up at the top right, we have the library's indexing. So even though we didn't see that indexing right away, we got it for a few moments. Now it's going to take Logos a little bit of time to re-index that book. As you can see, it's moving fairly quickly because it's only one resource. But nevertheless, it's some nice control there. All right, let's go to our command box, type in go to, and then we can put in our book abbreviation, John 3:16. Now notice with this particular command, we're getting several options. We're getting a layout option, tools, but here's the one we want. Look up, go to John 3:16 and preferred Bible. We click that, and now we're good to go. This is a command that I'm split. Half the time it can be convenient, half the time it's just easier to go right to the Bible. Returning to the wiki page, we have notes tool, so we can show a specific note. We can set default note font, and we can set default text size. This can be very handy, and it's a lot easier to do it through here. Notice the command, set default notes, font to, and then font name. So we can see the example right here. So let's select that. We'll right-click and copy. We'll go back to Logos. We'll paste that command in there. Wait for Logos command to generate the menu. There it is. And now it's set. Let's do the same thing for font size. We'll select the text, right-click and copy. Let's go back to Logos, paste it in there. Once the menu is generated, let's click on that. I'm going to make mine 11 just to make it a little bit easier to read on my end. And we'll click font size to 11. Now, if we go to Tools and we click Notes and we create a new note by clicking on New Note here at the top left, you can see that the font is set to Garamond. G-A-R. We make that a little bit bigger. We can see that there. And notice the font size is 11. Very handy. Let's go ahead and close both these windows and return to the Logos wiki page. Now notice here program settings. This is not unexpected. Since you have all this control in the program settings, it just doesn't make sense to use the menu where you can get to the program setting. All the commands in program settings are available in the command menu. Let's scroll down to Other. Now, there's a couple interesting menu options here. For example, set show unavailable features to yes. Logos tells you that there's features and documents and tools in which you don't have a license. Now, this is pretty cool. Let me go back to Logos. So what is Logos describing? Depending on your version of Logos, you may not have access to all these tools. So you're going to see them grayed out. That can really get in the way and annoy you. If you don't want to see tools you don't own, you can actually turn that display off. So we'll go into the command box, we'll right click and I'll paste that information in there. And then here we can go, set show unavailable features to, and then we type in no. Once Logos generates the menu, go ahead and click the menu. There we go. And now, if there's any tools that you don't have, they will no longer appear in the window. That's really handy and a great way to save space. Now, I need to go back in there and change that to yes, because I want to make sure that if I'm missing something in Logos, I have it. So I've changed it to set show unavailable features to yes. Let's go ahead and click it. And now all the features available. You can also update your channel to beta. This will allow you to get access to yet to be released features, but be aware that you may make Logos unstable and crash. So be aware of that. If you like to use gestures, you can turn those on or off. Sometimes gestures can get in the way. And so if you're seeing Logos act real wonky when you're using your touchpad and so forth, and you don't want gestures, I recommend turning those off by using set use gestures to no. This is an interesting feature for Windows users. Set use NGen to yes. Let's go ahead and try this out. I've gone ahead and pasted the command into the command box, set use NGen to yes. Let's get rid of that squiggly bracket. Once Logos generates the menu, go ahead and click yes. Notice it says restart to apply settings. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, our Logos has restarted. Notice that we're still indexing and preparing the library, so it'll take a few minutes. I recommend this feature if Logos isn't running as well as it used to in Windows. Hopefully, this will optimize the program for you. Let's move down to resources. This is one of those menu options I recommend not using because I think it's easier just to go to the library, type in the book you're looking for, and away you go. For books you open often, this actually may be a shortcut. But again, if you're opening a book often, I recommend just putting that book on the shortcut toolbar. Now, there's one I've showed years ago. It's the FSD, and it's called Facilitate Serendipitous Discovery, and basically opens up a random resource. This is more of a novelty than anything practical, but we can type in FSD. Logos will generate the menu, Facilitate Serendipitous Discovery. There it is. We click it, and Logos will randomly open up a resource from our library. There you go. Let's click X to close the window. Now, this feature was handy a few years back, the scan feature, but it's really not that important anymore. If you have some old Logos CDs or DVDs, pop them in, click scan, put the path in there, and it will pull those resources off of those disks. You have the ability to run search. That can be very handy. But again, I do recommend just simply using the tool. Now, sync is referencing that icon at the top right, the two arrows chasing one another in a circle. Again, which is easier, to type or to click? Click is always an easier thing to do. You have access to the tools menu. Now, these last couple ones are interesting. Update software resources. Update now, this is key, checks what resources have been updated on the server since your last update. Now, keep in mind, Logos behind the scenes is already doing this. But if you wanted to force it, you can do that by choosing Update Now. Update Resources, on the other hand, performs an intensive check against your licenses, and so it's a more thorough updating of the resources. If for some reason you need to change the interface, here you go. You have an option to type it in there. Again, this is much easier to do this through the program settings window. So bottom line, when do I use the command box for these things? I really don't, and I'll be honest with you. It's handy to have some of these things, but for the most part, there's no need. The program scaling is very helpful. I think that's useful. Type in a Bible verse is very useful. So let me close with this. When should you use the command box? As I've said before, there are strategies you should employ to make Logos more efficient for you. Remember, the shortcut toolbar is for anything you use on a regular basis that you want a one-click. Then under each menu, we use the second level shortcut toolbar for those frequently used items. In my opinion, the command box should be used to generate a menu and then use that menu to drag to your shortcut toolbar. So now you can execute specific commands with a single click. That would be my recommendation. The only other use I use the shortcut toolbar is to get myself to a passage real quick in a Bible, almost a kick-off menu. But once those resources are open, I'm focusing on those. I'm not going to the command box. Well, that concludes this overview of the command box.